Adaptation is literally everything. Because I mean, one coach is going to have you play here, the next one will have you play here. You're going to be given different instructions and different roles. That's all there is to it, because working hard is one thing, and then being disciplined is the next thing. And I would always say you always want to work hard and then be disciplined with it.
If you have this information in your head now, you know what you know now, but you were back where you were 5-6 years ago. What would you do differently? Perfect, guys. Here we are, Malachi again, back with A&M. Today we have former APU player Marko. Had some travels out in Europe, and today we're gonna get to pick his brain a little bit, go through some of his life experiences, and kind of get to know a little bit more about him and what it's like playing college soccer and potentially moving on to go pro. Perfect. Just to start things off with this, can you share your journey from youth soccer to playing at APU? I mean, how has your career path been? How has your journey been as growing up and then obviously getting to play Division II soccer?
Oh, I mean, I took a different route than usual. I mean, due to my family moving around and all, I lived in a lot of different states, played under a lot of different coaches, a lot of different teams. So my journey was a little bit different than the usual person. But playing under a lot of different coaches, you're gonna, expect a lot of different opinions, and you're gonna be shifted around a lot. For me personally, I started off as a striker. I worked my way down all the way until I was a defensive mid, and now I'm a right back. So you can just imagine just how I felt at the moment. 'Cause, I mean, I was scoring goals one time, now I'm defending them. Playing under a lot of different coaches, it gets tough at times because, when you get stuck with one, you build a relationship with them, and then boom, next thing you know, they're out, and you have to find new ways to find familiarization and personalize yourself with the next person. So it's always been tough for me, but it's something that helped me adapt. I've become very adaptable under new scenarios, different circumstances, and I think that's what really helped me throughout my career.
And how important would you say it is to adapt to different situations? I mean, you see it all the time, even in the pro level. You see the likes of Camavinga, Chouameni, just from Real Madrid, who are being put in different roles than they're used to. Bellingham playing the 9 a little bit, Camavinga playing left back, and then Chouameni playing center back. How important do you think it is to be able to adapt at the next level?
Adaptation is literally everything. Because I mean, one coach is going to have you play here, the next one will have you play here. You're going to be given different instructions and different roles. And I think throughout my career, I learned the value of what a role is, especially at the college level. Every player on the team has a role, whether you're playing or you're not. And that's something you have to fulfill. And every coach is going to demand you of that. And the worst case scenario is if you don't understand your role, you could always ask, and then you'll probably get a direct answer. So.
And it's kind of like, just being the next man up available to be ready. You're not always going to be that first guy in line, but when it's your turn, you got to be ready to do whatever it takes, right? Whether it's right back, center mid, or wherever they need you, being able to do that, right?
You're right, exactly.
What influenced your decision to play college soccer, and were there any specific factors that led you to choose APU? I mean, growing up with you, I know you were always a very ambitious person. What led you to take the college route?
Oh, I mean, originally I never wanted to play in college. I always thought, I'd see young kids on TV, and I thought I want to be that person. But however, my circumstance was a little bit different, and it took a lot of influence from my parents, of course, wanting the best for me, and a best friend of mine who also played as well. He played Division I in the Big East Conference for Seton Hall. Yeah, so I would say you get the best of both worlds. You get to pursue education and play at the same time. And I did graduate recently this past spring with a degree in business management.
Yeah, congratulations.
Thank you, I appreciate that. There's nothing wrong with playing college soccer. At the time, I was, didn't really care. I just had no ambition or didn't. I knew very little about it. I never did information. I never emailed coaches. I never did any of that. And I was just lucky to have been picked up and pursue a degree at the same time and keep playing.
How did the pandemic affect you during your college career? Obviously it took a big hit on everyone, taking a year and a half off, not necessarily off, but away from actually playing soccer, and then, away from your overall goal of moving on to the next level. How did that affect you?
Probably the toughest moment of my life, I would say. I mean, I was originally, my first year I was playing at Cal State Dominguez Hills. I redshirted there, I didn't get any minutes, and then I transferred that following spring to Azusa Pacific, and I was already ambitious enough to have, spring games. I knew there was going to be a lot, and a week before COVID hit, I was told that I was going to be getting a lot of minutes that spring, as of everyone else was, and then of course COVID hits, season's over, we don't even know what's going on. No one knows what's going on, and I would say that had the biggest effect on me because I was still wanting to get back on the field and play because I missed a lot of time when I was at my original school, Dominguez Hills. Yeah, I would say that had a very negative effect on me, but I came back and I'm stronger now because of it. So
What was your life like at the time? Obviously a lot of restrictions on us. Did you have like a training routine, gym routine? Like what was your life?
I mean, I just stick to the usual. I mean, I always try to train at least once a day,
Hmm.
and I think it's always good to keep your touches in, even despite any scenario going on. And for me, it was just training at home, doing as much as I can with the little resource I had, you know. And then when it came to being on Zoom calls and everything with the team, that helped a lot as well, and checking on everybody. But
Yeah.
as long as I just stayed shape and waited for the next opportunity to arise, then that's all that mattered really at the
What
time.
kind of training? You mentioned touches, so what kind of little things do you like to do to stay sharp?
Go to the nearest park and just kick the ball against the wall, set up a few cones, do a few dribbling drills, and shoot it against the wall, pass it against the wall, receive it in different directions, different ways, and just be creative with it. There's no exact training plan for me. As long as you're just touching the ball and getting the best out of it, then it's all that really
Okay.
matters.
Could you describe a typical day in the life of you playing soccer and then balancing studies and social life with it?
I mean, you will have free time, but it is a bit of a struggle, when you're pursuing athletics and education at the same time. So I would say you would just go to class. After class, you would go to training. And training, maybe you have more classes afterwards. It all just depends on one. It depends on your major. Some
Hmm.
majors are harder than others and it requires more attention. Also, it depends on your training schedule as well. So what you will do when you get to college is you build your classes around your training schedule, I would say. Game on the weekend, game on a Thursday. I mean, sometimes you miss class, sometimes you don't, depending if you're on the travel roster or not. But I would say it's manageable.
Going back to obviously the time management, how did you manage the demands of soccer, social life, and obviously studies? Like how did you
Hmm.
manage your time?
That was one of the hardest parts for any college athlete, I would say, because you have to manage so many things at all different times. And I mean, for me personally, it was just the value of communication.
Mhm.
Some people have to know like what your ambitions are with everything, and they have to know like what you were doing exactly. And for me, so a lot of my friends knew that I was playing ball, and then I was pursuing education at the same time, so they knew I would be very occupied with things. And it does help, when you're on a team, athletics team, and then you have a lot of your teammates in your class and everything. So they run on a similar schedule as you, and that's what helps you grow closer to them and everything.
Mhm.
And for those that have struggle with managing time and everything that goes with being a college athlete, there's always other resources to help you out there. The school will provide, the athletic program will provide, so you're always in help.
What advice do you have for any soccer player who aspires to play at the next level, whether it be college or pro?
Sounds repetitive, but work hard.
Mhm.
I mean, the value of hard work can bring you so many different places, and you never want to close many doors. You never want to burn any bridges. And I think through the value of hard work, people can see that. That's all there is to it, because working hard is one thing, and then being disciplined is the next thing. And I would always say you always want to work hard and then be disciplined with it. And for many people, it's like, oh, they want to take breaks and
Mhm.
everything. But for me, it's all about you have to sacrifice. Sometimes you want to go out, but you can't because you have a game the next day, or you have to be ready for training. Person that works hard and then you sacrifice a lot, you're gonna go far places, and that's all I could really recommend other people.
Now going on the topic of sacrifices. So I mean, unless you're playing academy, you're not going to be training 4 days a week.
Right.
How important is it? Those days that you aren't training, those 2 days or that
Hmm.
extra day that you don't have training. Should you treat that as a day off? What kind of approach would you take to something like that if you have this information in your head now, you know what you know now,
Hmm.
but you were back where you were
Hmm.
5, 6 years ago. What
Hmm.
would you do differently?
There's always something. There's always something you can do. There's always something you can work on. So I always say never take a day off. I mean, of course, maybe on a Sunday,
Hmm.
day of Sabbath, whatever it
Yeah.
is, you want to take a time measure off and then recover the body. But for me, I would say there's always something you can do, and whether that's at home at the local park with friends or whatever, there's always something you can do to help improve yourself and improve any weaknesses you have to your game, even strengths. You always want to work on those as well.
We talked about your recruitment process and you not being initially interested in playing college soccer. Can you walk us through how it was for you, and then any advice you might have for soccer players wanting to take a
Hmm.
similar route?
I would always say email coaches and build connections,
Hmm.
because connections is ultimately what gets you to the next level. And for me, I didn't really do any of that. I was very fortunate and lucky to be in the right place in the right time. So after one of my games, I was approached by the original coaches at Cal State Dominguez Hills, and at the time, I just wrote my name down, gave them my phone number. I didn't even ask what the school name was. I didn't even ask what their names were. I just walked away, and I didn't didn't really care because wasn't very interested. And then I just remember my parents were saying, go back, talk to them, and like, who are they? So I went and asked, and they gave me a little rundown of who they are, what school they are coaching, and it ended up being Cal State Dominguez Hills in the NCAA too. And from there, they were very interested in me. And then a few months later, I did commit to them.
You mentioned earlier that you did redshirt for Dominguez Hills. Was there a reason behind that? How did that affect you mentally, and what was kind of your approach to actually being a redshirt that year?
Yeah. So, when I originally committed to Cal State Dominguez Hills, I was recruited by a different staff, and that staff ended up leaving a few months later. And then a new head coach came in and brought in a few of his guys. And only, after the first 2 weeks, I was just told I'd be redshirting, and under reasons to this day I don't even know of. It was something personal he had against me or whatever it was, but I won't get into too much detail about it. But dealing with that for a few months of not playing and just sitting on the sidelines and watching, it was very tough. And I think that was the first time in my life where I wasn't, playing consecutively and consistently. So for me, I had to learn to adapt to that kind of circumstance of what it's like to be kind of like, it felt like an outsider for me. So I had to learn what it was like to be an outsider and what ways I could do to improve myself. Because even at training, you weren't involved as much because you weren't being used. And for me, I just had to find different ways to improve myself, improve my game, and focus on the next challenge ahead.
What specific skills or attributes do you believe are crucial for success, not only in college soccer, but just the ability to play soccer? Whether it be as you move on to the next level, or growing up now playing club or academy.
I mean, the game is getting a lot more physical, I think. So I always think, you could work on your speed and agility and things like that. But also, this sport requires a brain. So I think having a very high IQ and knowledge of it, whether you're playing goalkeeper to striker to right back, left back, whatever, it all requires the same thing. So for me, I would say watching a lot of it helps, and learning off the professionals of the game, the people at the highest of levels. For me, that's what helped me personally. And I would say, other than that, you always want to ask questions. You always want to know what's next. You always have to want what's more. So you have to be more demanding of yourself, and I think that's was a very crucial part of getting to the next level.
Could you discuss the importance of staying in your best form? Obviously, being ready to
hmm
play. You mentioned being a red shirt, and maybe let's say you're not a red shirt, but you're a player who's not getting as many chances as you think you should deserve. How important is it to be ready? We talked about being the next man up.
Right. So I mean, sometimes you might get put into a game with 5 minutes left, and you have to be prepared for those 5 minutes, even 2 minutes, 3 minutes, whatever it is. So a situation can change within seconds, and for me, you always want to be ready for what's next. And the part that is hard about that is you have to stay mentally ready. For some people, they just give up by then, and then they don't take advantage of the opportunity. Because whether that opportunity is 5 minutes, 2 minutes, 10 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever it is, you have to take advantage of it because not many of them come around sometimes. And let's say you don't take advantage of that one, then you have to wait for the next. And you never know how long that will be, especially if
Or
you're
if
not
the next
playing.
will actually come that time.
Exactly.
Always got to be ready. I like that. As a former Division II soccer player, what are your future plans, and how has your soccer experience influenced your current career path?
I still want to pursue it. It's something I've been playing since I was 4 years old, and it's not easy to let go of, it's occupied my life. It's given me an identity, and it's something I truly love. I really do. And I still want to play at the highest level that I can, and hopefully that is in the professional level, wherever that may be. And that's always been a goal of mine. And I think to achieve that, it's gonna take a few more years out of me. And I mean, I'm still young, fortunately, but time is ticking, and sometimes you gotta face the reality of life. And good thing I have a degree to back up any further thing I want to pursue. So, yeah.
All right. So before the interview started, you mentioned to me that you had just recently come back from a trial in Croatia. So how did that go for you? How did you get connected, and how did you get your foot in the door?
I mean, always been a process because, I mean, I have Croatian roots. My father's from Croatia, and it's always helped with a few buddies of his. I have connections, but it all started when I was very young. I was around 12 years old when I went there and I played for the first time. And then throughout the years, I would come in, get guest invitations for one of the highest academies over there, Hajduk Split. And then that's kind of what put my foot through the door and get me recognized a little bit. And I would just go there for a few days, train with them, get the experience, a real experience of what it's like to be in a professional club in Europe in their academy, train the players. And what I can say is, I mean, the level there is nothing below great. And for me, I had to adapt to that my very first few days because what people have over there, their mindset over there is this is what I have. Like most of these players, they don't have an education. Many of them probably don't even have a high school. And you're going up against grown men, and they're all this is their job. This is what supports themselves, supports their families. And for me, I had to adapt to that because I mean, they have nothing to lose. Me, I mean, I could just go and come back home, live a decent life with the degree I have in business, and have no worries and just live a life that just doesn't require that much stress or anything. But uh, for me, I still want to keep playing and prove myself right.
What would you say is the biggest takeaway from, obviously having so many different experiences playing over there and having the opportunity to train with teams there at the highest level? Obviously, you mentioned, one of their top academies. What's the biggest difference between playing over there and playing here?
I would say just the culture of it over there. I mean, soccer is obviously the top sport over there, and I would say in the U.S. it's a little bit differently because some of those kids over there they're learning things at a younger age than what we are here. Because over here, soccer's more business minded, I guess, when it comes to the youth level at least. And we're only training here maybe 3 or 4 days the max, the most. And over there, they've been training every day since they were maybe like 6, 7, 8 years old. And they're already learning things like checking your shoulders, how to hit a proper long ball. For me, I was starting to learn those things like when I was in my mid teens. Over there, they've learned that since they were 10, 11. And for me, it was a good experience because I learned a lot of that, and that's all I can really say for it.
Obviously you lived a very, I would say, unique life as far as your journey playing soccer. If you could go back in time, is there anything you would change as far as, what's brought you to this point?
Oh yeah, there's a few things I would change. I mean, I don't live with regrets, but a few things I would change. One was work harder when I was a younger kid, and I mean, like I've said before, it sounds repetitive, but hard work is really the key to success. And for me, there's times where I was just lazy. I developed the bad habits of not wanting to train and everything. And then I started to realize that when my late teenage years, and that's already when people are starting to overtake me and be a better player than I was. And then to me, it was like kind of playing catch up with them. So for me, I would say just working hard. And the next thing for me, I would say is picking teams. I was always too decisive in the moment, and I didn't really think things through. Like for example, my commitment to Dominguez Hills, I should probably ask more questions and see what the future was like. And with the coaches leaving, that really changed the whole pinnacle of my college career.
Mm-hmm.
And then the school I committed to next, I mean, it was just one phone call because I knew the assistant coach there. And again, I rushed into a decision too much, and I just didn't receive as much as I thought I would.
So going back to obviously the college recruitment side of things, how big of a factor were your grades in those those talks with those coaches?
I mean, before my first Cal State Dominguez offer, I was being looked at by a few other different schools, and what they required were good grades. And at the time, I mean, I was averaging maybe a 2.4, 2.3 GPA. And, for those that know, it's a very bad thing to have, especially if you're an athlete, because what I did at the time was I was closing doors, and I was closing doors for many opportunities I could have had if I had better grades. And I was luckily enough I was able to graduate. However, I wish I had taken school a little bit more serious. I mean, I was so focused more on just playing soccer that I didn't care about the next homework assignment or studying for the next test. I was just again I just nothing came across my mind like, oh, you need good grades to play in college, because originally I didn't even want to play in college. But once I decided that I needed to, and then I look at my grades, it wasn't there, so I had to play catch up with that a little bit. And that kind of did, you know, make my career shift the other way around than what it should have
So
been.
as far as obviously we talked about you talking to a few different schools. You said that your GPA kind of closed the door on some of them, but as far as some of them that were more interested in you, did your GPA have an effect on the offer you got?
Not necessarily, because by the time, I was committed and about to graduate, I already kind of sparked up to a 3.0 GPA. And I believe the average is maybe you need to have at least a 2.8, right, or
Mm-hmm.
something like that. So I was already in the clear for that. But I would say for those, that are watching, I mean, if your grades aren't there and your GPA is a little bit low, I mean, try to get that up as quick as you can because you never know when the next opportunity will arrive. Next coach will see you because you never know who's watching. You know, like for me, for example, I was just 1 week game I had at the end of the season. I didn't expect anyone to be there. It was like 8 o'clock in the morning. And what happened? Dominguez Hill's coaches were there and they were just watching. You never know who's watching, so you always want to perform and then be ready. Always be ready. That's another tip advice I give. Always be ready. Yeah. Your favorite saying?
Favorite saying. Honestly, so again, going back to your career, your journey playing soccer. What would you say is the most fun time of your career? The most fun you've ever had playing soccer?
I would say when I was, this was a long time ago, but it was when I was in maybe 7th grade. I mean, for me, soccer, I mean, still young, so I can't really say, oh, I was, creating, opportunities for myself then. But I mean, I had a really good time when I was living in New Jersey, and I was, that's where I met my best friend. I was playing like the best soccer of my life, and for me, it was just from tournaments in different states and even around the whole state of New Jersey, and then playing away games and everything. It was a fun experience for me. It's something I really enjoyed because I really liked the team I had and the people around it, and I had a good relationship with the coach at the time. So for me, it was just a very fun experience for me.
All right, guys, thank you for watching. Again, Marco, thanks for coming out.
Thank you
Pleasure
for
having
having
you.
me.
Of course, pleasure having you. Guys, stay tuned for our next video. Comment down below if you saw your question asked from our Instagram poll, and stay tuned.